Hey guys, I'm the Hollywood Digerati, and on today's episode, we're gonna recap and review the first episode of the Assassination of Gianni Versace on FX. So let's get right to it. The title of the episode is The Man Who Would Be Vogue, and it begins with us traveling back in time, time travel, back into 1997. And we go into Gianni Versace's palace, his home in Miami. And they show us Gianni Versace waking up and starting basically his day. And there's servants everywhere and everything's like really beautiful and expensive and tasteful. And then there's also these cutscenes to Andrew Cunanan on the beach. And he's just like sitting there on the beach looking out at the waves. And it looks kind of peaceful. But then they show him walking into the ocean. And before we know it, he's like full on screaming into the ocean going, ah! Now, if you guys noticed, in the first 8 minutes of the show, there's hardly any talking. I mean, barely any. But this beautiful music is playing in the background. And that really helps draw you into the show. Music they used is something called Adagio in G minor. And that music is so dramatic and operatic that it's like beautiful music. I mean, it just really makes you feel emotions, even though the people are hardly saying anything. But the visuals are just so stunning. So it really works, both elements together. We also see some scenes of Andrew throwing up into some toilet, and it seems like he's struggling with the decision to kill Gianni Versace. So then he goes to the mansion and he shoots Gianni Versace right there in broad daylight. They're right on the beach, but it was like nobody around. It was just him and Cunanan, which was kind of weird. He kills Versace point blank. He points the gun and Gianni Versace says, no. And then boom, the credits roll, and then we time travel again. San Francisco in 1990. And they show us Andrew Cunanan at some club. They show him basically staking out Gianni Versace. He sees him there at the club, surrounded by all these other beautiful men. And you can just tell that he wants to get close. He wants to be part of it. The show does a very good job at showing us how Andrew Cunanan is pathological. And he'll say anything and do anything to get what he wants. So he makes up these lies about how he met Gianni Versace at a party back in Lake Como in Italy. And he just BS's his way into having conversation with Gianni Versace. He brags to his friends how Versace has invited him to the opera. And his friends have a hard trouble believing him because, they kind of know him. They know that, this could be a lie, it could be true. You never know with Andrew. So Cunanan gets all dolled up in these nice clothes because, you got to dress to impress. And he goes to the opera. He steals one of those little, binocular things that the rich people have. And he sits in his seat and he's actually being cruised by other guys while he's at the opera. But he doesn't care because, he only cares about Gianni Versace because he knows that's where the money is. After the opera ends, Gianni and Andrew are together and they just start, talking. And this is when Andrew Cunanan's pathological lying skills really come out. And he talks about all these great cool lies, like how his father was a pilot for Imelda Marcos, and the father's also apparently owns a bunch of pineapple plantations, and that's how he got his money, and he's been educated at the best American colleges, and this and that. And it's like, how do you keep track of all of this? But it all sounds real, it sounds good, and so it works. So after that, we time travel back in the time machine, back to the time when Gianni Versace got shot, and we continue from there. And they show Andrew Cunanan, running away, trying to get away, from the crime scene, and Gianni essentially just dying there on the doorsteps of his house. Then Ricky Martin comes out, and he's like, "Where's the ambulance? Where's the ambulance?" And like nobody's calling an ambulance. It's like, what's going on? And I guess it's because he was already dead. Like, I thought he was dead. I thought that's why nobody was calling an ambulance. But apparently he was alive. So after Versace's rushed to the hospital, the surgeons do their best to try to save him. But he ends up dying at exactly 9:21. So after Cunanan dies, the media starts going crazy and it starts being reported on all the channels. And Cunanan's kind of like feeding off the coverage. And you see him at one point, put his hands over his mouth. And we don't know if he's laughing like this or he's like sad. But obviously he's laughing, right? And so it's not until 49 minutes into the show that Donatella Versace makes her appearance in the episode. The staircase rolls out and we see this blonde woman start walking down, and we're like, okay, obviously that's Donatella. So then we cut to Ricky Martin being investigated or interviewed by the detectives about Gianni Versace's death. And they're like, who are you? And he's like, well, I'm his partner. And you know, this is the 1990s. It was a different time. And some people can be real jerks and they don't actually want to like even think of a man being with a man, especially back then. So they're like, partner. Because, you know, it could also be a business partner. But they were just trying to be difficult, you could tell. It's like, partner? What kind of partner? That could mean many things. It's like, you know exactly what it means. And apparently, you know, Gianni Versace, he liked having like threesomes and stuff. And eventually they asked him, so you brought guys over for Gianni? And Ricky Martin's like, yeah, but, you know, I was his partner, not his pimp. But they really were brutal with Ricky Martin. They're like, were you paid to love him? And he's like, was I paid to love him? It's like, no, he cast a spell on people. Anybody would love Gianni Versace. What I love about these shows is that you learn all these tidbits that you never knew were going on in real life. Like this whole thing about the Versace company going public and going on the New York Stock Exchange. Like I had no idea there were plans for that. And thank God they didn't do that, because just like Donatella said in the show, she was like, no, this is a family company. We're gonna lose control. We might be voted out by strangers, and we don't want that. I mean, she was totally right to not go public. Thank God that didn't happen. And the very last scene in the show is Andrew Cunanan dressed all in yellow, wearing a cap, walking there in beautiful South Beach, and going to a newsstand and buying all the newspapers that have, you know, the Gianni Versace assassination on the front cover. And he says to the guy, you know, I'll take all of them. And that's it. That's the end of the first episode. So guys, my opinion on the show is that it was great. That whole hour and 15 minutes just flew by. And you know, I love Ryan Murphy and all the other shows he's done, like Nip Tuck and American Horror. But sometimes, you know, I've noticed that he makes like these good shows, and sometimes they can get a little campy. And I was a little afraid that this series would delve into some campiness, but it wasn't like that at all. It was totally like elegant and operatic, and I don't know, the storytelling was good. It was just beautifully shot. Everything about it, it felt more like a movie, if anything. So I really loved this episode. I'm totally looking forward to next week's episode, and I think you guys are too. And if you are, come back next week, because I'll do a recap to the second episode too. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm the Hollywood Digerati, and I'm out.